Greetings, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Those who are claiming that certain ethnic or language groups are Israelite understand the writings of the ancient Israelites differently than as the Israelites themselves understood those writings. Their understanding is that when those writings said, as they often do, that the Israelites would be scattered among the nations, what they meant is that the nation of Israel would break into several pieces, and that members of some of those pieces would end up living together as distinct communities outside of the Promised Land. That must be the understanding, because the only way that an ethnic or language group existing today can be Israelite is if it started off with Israelites alone and then grew over time in population size and territory until it became what it is today. And so the question becomes, is that really what those writings meant by scattered among the nations? To gain an accurate understanding of what the phrase scattered among the nations meant, it is necessary to understand what the Hebrew word meant, which has been translated in that phrase as nations. That word is goyim, the singular form of it being goy. The word goy did not mean the same thing to the ancient Israelites as the word nation means to us today. Imputing that meaning to the word goy is the reason why so many are looking in the wrong place for the descendants of the ancient Israelites. The names by which nations are identified today, names such as Tanzania, Botswana, Nigeria, and so on, are understood generally to refer to certain places on this earth. That understanding is behind the assumption that the scattering of the Israelites among the nations was to be a geographic phenomena, and that the places to which they were to be scattered are the predecessors of the territories or geographic areas which the United Nations today recognizes as nations. On the other hand, the ancient Israelites used the word goy to refer not to a place but to a group of people having a common ancestor and living together as neighbors. One of the many places where this understanding is evident is in the book of Micah chapter 4. Verse 2 of that chapter begins with the words, "Many nations will come and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord.'" And verse 3 of the same chapter ends with the words, "Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they learn war anymore." Obviously, the word which has been translated in those verses as nations could not have been referring to a place, because a place cannot speak, a place cannot go up a mountain, a place cannot learn war, and so on. But a goy, which is the word that was used in that place, can do all those things. Nowhere is this truth more evident than in the words of Moses, which are recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 33 and verse 13. At the end of that verse, Moses, when speaking to our Creator about the Israelites, at a time when the Israelites were in the wilderness and still had no territory, says of the Israelites, "This nation is thy people." That's what he says. He says, this nation is thy people. So whatever the word is that has been translated into English as nation in that place or in that verse cannot possibly be referring to a place, because it says this nation is thy people. And if that word did not refer to a place there, then it cannot refer to a place anywhere else. And so when the writings of the Israelites said that they would be scattered among the nations, it was referring not to a place on this earth, but it was referring to the various non-Israelite peoples of this earth. And so in order to find the descendants of the ancient Israelites, we must look within the various non-Israelite peoples among whom their ancestors were scattered. But this is not to say that those writings do not imply that the Israelites were to be scattered geographically. Their geographic scattering came about because at the time when they were scattered, the people having a common ancestor lived together as neighbors in the same geographic area. And the geographic area in which such a people lived came to be known as the land of the people who lived in that area. So while today a group of people may be referred to as Namibians because they live in the geographic area called Namibia, back then the land of Canaan, for example, was so named because the people who lived in it were descendants of Noah's grandson, Canaan. In other words, the land did not give its name to the people who lived on it, but rather the people gave their name, which they got from their ancestor, to the land that they lived in. And so, in light of this, and what all this actually means, is that an ethnic or language group existing today is not likely to be composed of Israelites alone, and that tracing one's descent to such an ethnic or language group does not make a person an Israelite. What is more likely is that members of the nearly 3,000 ethnic groups indigenous to the continent of Africa, some of their members may be Israelites. In our forthcoming video, I will explain how using Y-DNA testing of African men could help us to identify conclusively which individuals among us are actually Israelites. But what it suffices to say now is that while the Hebrew language may have been a Bantu language, being Bantu does not make a person an Israelite. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and have a good day. Bye-bye.